In the years before the cataclysm of the Yamasee War of 1715, English cartography focused attention on Carolina as a place of surging settler populations whose presence on the land shored up Britain's legal claims to the title. No map captured the extent of this expansion better than Edward Crisp's A Complete Description of the Province of Carolina, published in 1711. By this time, over 10,000 people inhabited the settled parts of South Carolina. Maybe that doesn't seem like a big number to us today, but in the early modern world, this was a surging, thriving colony. The turn of the 18th century marked a moment of great acceleration for the colony's export economy, focused on rice production, that would make colonial South Carolina slave owners one of the wealthiest groups in the English-speaking world. This map may look familiar to you because I just showed you the map that it copied to create this image of the main rivers that flow into Charleston Harbor. In fact, it's a very near copy of the Thornton and Morden map. It's the core plantation district that developed in the 17th century. Crisp made some additions to it, and for the first time, we can see plantations and the great planters of this colony named along the banks of the river. And so Crisp added new names and documented how expansive these plantations were. But what's really distinctive and important about the Crisp map is that it takes the Thornton Morden map and copies it, but then it adds a whole new panel to it that shows the southern frontier into which this colony was rapidly expanding. This enlarged map of the Low Country stretched about 60 miles to the south from the earlier map. It included the Sea Islands and the coastal tidelands from the Edisto to the Savannah River. By stitching this image of the colony's 18th century future to its 17th century past, Crisp showcased this surge of speculation and settlement along the southern coast, South Carolina's most important new plantation frontier. The map's two large insets picture Britain's expansive ambitions. One of these, titled A Map of South Carolina, showing the settlements of the English, French, and Indian nations from Charlestown to the River Mississippi, marks the path that the Indian agent for South Carolina, Thomas Nairn, took in a journey in 1708. This journey was aimed to steal the powerful Choctaw Indians away from their alliance with the French. Along a 500-mile route, Thomas Nairn talked up the benefits of stronger English commercial alliances among the Tallapoosa's, the Chickasaws, the Choctaws, and other Indians, some of whom were already making an established practice of enslaving weaker Indians and selling them to Charleston merchants. Nairn's map conceives of South Carolina's borders in a way that should be surprising to us. See how South Carolina stretches beyond this area of English settlement right here, you know, the area that we've been looking at on maps for the past few maps, and extends it all the way to the River Mississippi. Nairn's map conceived of Carolina's borders not just as the settled area in which the planters lived, but all the territories of the Native Americans who were trading partners with South Carolina merchants. He envisioned a vast trading dominion that stretched halfway across the continent. This dominion was bounded by the Tennessee River on the north, by the Mississippi on the west, and went all the way to the Gulf Coast in the south. The other important inset in this map shows what this means in terms of the geopolitics of the age. This second inset traces the length of the Atlantic coastline from the North Carolina-Virginia border to the Florida Keys. It grants the Spanish, who actually are occupying St. Augustine at this point, only rule over the southern part of the Florida peninsula, and this small group of Floridians who live on its coast And one of the things you'll notice about these early Florida maps is that they weren't really sure whether Florida was a bunch of islands or actually an extension of the mainland. And if you've ever been to southern Florida, you'll know that if you go up an inlet, it just seems like a bunch of broken land, completely inundated by water. This was the land that the English were willing to concede to the Spanish. The rest of it, however, they believe belonged by right, by war, and by nature to the King of England. And the way Chris drew this map tries to show that nature brought English Carolina together. As you can see from this map, all the area painted in red along the coast is similar in geographic form. All of the rivers flow from the interior to the coast. They create this string of barrier islands all the way to St. Augustine. Remember, actually occupied by the Spanish, not by the English. But in this map, it's saying this is what English Carolina was meant to be. Nature intended it to be brought together. Events in the recent past had also made this clear. The South Carolinians had allied themselves with the powerful Creek Indians, and during Queen Anne's War from 1703 to 1713, they attacked all of the allied mission Indians of the Spanish in the area of modern-day Georgia. So they pushed back the Spanish to their citadel in St. Augustine, reduced their attempt to create an empire in the southeast through warfare. And here they're claiming the spoils of that military action, again, making a very bold, expansive case for a greater Carolina.